The recording should be starting pretty soon, and I think people are still coming in, but I'll admit them in a
Okay.
moment. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. I think this is also like the first session for a number of folks. So yeah, thanks for joining us for first time. I'm Shanika Ward, current Atlanta chapter president for BDPA Atlanta. And to give a quick intro into BDPA Atlanta, so we're a membership organization with focus on technology. So we're mostly focused on how can we increase exposure to our community. So exposure to tech topics, exposure to I guess how to like self improvement, things that kind of, especially like our topic today, like how can you, with how the industry is right now, like how can you kind of stay focused and not let that derail you a bit. So in addition to, or I guess some of the offerings we have, so our STEM program, which we actually are kicking off our season coming up in a couple weeks, so like should be probably early March, where have a STEM program for students to get introduced to computer science concepts and like web programming. Esports is also an offering that we're definitely trying to push for this year. And so if you know a student that could benefit from the program, registration is open now. I can drop links to all of that in the chat after as the session goes on. So in addition to the STEM program, we also need volunteers. So kind of helping us with kind of the brainstorming of all of this is very helpful. So if you're also interested in volunteering, feel free to reach out to us on social media or connect with me, and I can try to give some more information. I also wanted to take time to thank our sponsors. So State Farm is still a major sponsor, helping us with being able to offer some of these programming to the students, and like our platform here is Zoom, like being able to host these sessions. And then I also want to thank Motion Recruitment and John for helping us with content these last couple of years and in our speaker. So with that, I'll hand it over to John, and he can introduce our speaker for this evening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shanika. Yeah, we're honored to be involved. And like we were talking about before, the topic I think is so timely tonight, just given where we are with the market. Just to maybe a quick little shout out to some of the upcoming meetings too. So next month we have Mike Williams from Google talking about career coaching. And we have a few other sessions the following months still on kind of the job search topic. So it's a good opportunity for us over the next quarter to really kind of dig deep and get into these topics and provide some networking opportunities for folks as well. Beyond that, we have Edwin on the docket later in the year. He's going to talk about some CRM technologies and other things that he's been involved with. We have another cybersecurity talk coming up. We also have this one. I think this is a tangent from our meeting in January where Victor Montgomery talked about Chat GPT and just the power of that, how to use that with your career and have almost Chat GPT be somewhat of a career coach for you. It was a great conversation, but we got into the ethics of AI, and so we have Ron Johnson, who gave a great talk in November on cybersecurity. Edwin helped host that, and he's by then he will have finished a book on responsible AI. So should be. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's just a great topic. So, anyways, quick plug for what's ahead of us. For those of you, Shanika is so humble. She and Victor have done more with BDPA in the last few years than you can imagine. There's 30 chapters of BDPA across the country, and every year there's a chapter that's selected as the chapter of the year. And only because there's a rule that you can't have a three-peat winner. Uh, Shanika and Victor led the chapter to being back-to-back chapter of the years 2 years back. So the work that they do with the kids, STEM, it's truly touching. So scholarships to those folks. So it's really some wonderful, wonderful work. If you are looking for an opportunity, it's my long-winded way to connect the dots here to intro our speaker. If you're looking for a way to give back, like our speaker tonight, this is the third time that Myra has been on as a speaker. So talk about giving back with her time and her talent here tonight. Please do reach out. Like we're always looking for people that want to share their experience. Also looking for people that want to be mentors with kids and either in app dev or any kind of technology. With that, let me introduce Myra. Myra, wherever Myra goes, good things happen. I'll say that. She is someone that leads with a heart. And last year, our theme for the whole year was leadership. The very first meeting of the year was Myra on empathetic leadership. One of the best meetings we had all year, in my opinion. And it's, there's probably a number of people on this call that are familiar with, an agile mindset and how that goes, that shift of working in an iterative way, ground up rather than top down. Command and control is just kind of an archaic style now. And Myra just does an incredible job of working in that agile way, and consensus and teamwork and trust and all of that. If there's ever a person with a skill set and a personality and a network and a resume that looks great, that would struggle to find a job in a timely manner, you gotta wake up and be like, okay, we're in somewhat of a difficult marketplace. If someone like Myra has a story to tell about, hey, I had to do these things to get through this, you sit up straight and listen. And I think there'll be a lot of things that we can discuss tonight, we can share tonight, we can collaborate on. There's different ways of looking at things when you're in the heart of your job search. It's not a cookie cutter approach either. So you got to read the room, you got to read the people. Myra's probably thinking, God, would you please, you're stealing my content, just stop, enough already. But Myra, she worked at Matrix for a while. She saved a couple of projects that I had been responsible for bringing in. There were some app dev projects, and she was our leader of that team. So that's where I first got to know Myra, and just did such a wonderful job. She did a little bit of mentoring even with my two daughters, who are now Georgia Tech alum engineers. And Myra was so kind. On a day, she spent a couple hours with them both, and they still talk about that. So you reach far, Myra. You probably don't know that, but anyways, I'm going to stop there. We look forward to hearing your journey here, and what you went through last year. And thank you again for giving back and being with us tonight.
Well, thank you, JV. As always, you're wonderful, just a wonderful person at heart, and I thank you for that kind introduction. Almost makes me want to cry. But I am honored to be here, and I can't say enough about the BDPA organization and Shanika and Victor, and the fact that I've had an opportunity to contribute over the last 3 years. It's just been amazing, and it's definitely an honor. And that's a focus of giving back, and that will be a center of some of my conversation. In order to in order to have good things come to you, you have to be willing to share and to give back and to help others when they need help. And so I'll talk a lot tonight about that type of behavior and mindset, as well as, what it takes to network and a lot of different subjects we can touch on. But I first want to say, this is an open forum. This just isn't about Myra. I'm not here for you guys to sit and ladies to sit and hear me talk about myself, right? I'm going to share my story from last year, but I want to be able to use this time to help you, to maybe answer questions that are just, out of your frustration. If you're in the midst of looking for a job, how can I provide you with some information that will help you along your journey, right? To help you get to the other side. So this won't work tonight if you aren't willing to raise your hand and engage, because I'll learn from everyone in this session, right? It's not you learning from me, but it's also me learning from you. And I thank you for taking the time to spend with us tonight. So as JB said, I was working for a startup. My background has really been career-wise, mostly healthcare. So healthcare IT, right? I'll start a little bit, go back. I'm from the Midwest, grew up around Columbia, Missouri. Most people may never have heard of it, but if I say Mizzou Tigers, you may, if you're into basketball and football, you may know where it's located. But it's in the heart of the state, about an hour and a half from St. Louis and about an hour or so from Kansas City, Missouri. Grew up with a wonderful family, mom, dad, three other siblings, two brothers and a sister. And I will have to say that the person that I am today and how I approach life really goes back to how my parents raised myself and my siblings, right? With the core values and what it means to work hard, and you've got to work for what you want, and no one's here to hand anything out to you. I mean, I grew up in that era where that was taught to us, right? And that has stuck with me in my professional life and my personal life. So went off to college. Education was important to me and my parents, and so they helped us focus on that. So earned a bachelor's degree, and I always had a thing for healthcare. So I thought I wanted to be an RN. I actually got accepted to nursing school, did the first couple of years in college in the program, and then decided, nope, I don't want to work weekends and nights and so on and so forth. And nurses work really, really hard, and they really know more than doctors know. So I'm going to take a different path, right? I kind of had a little bit of forethought, and ended up changing my major to business administration, and didn't know where that was going to lead me in life. But it led me down a path of eventually always being in healthcare. I've always worked in hospitals and things like that, or like Kaiser Permanente, some form of healthcare. I spent really the first, out of college, my first 5 years, my first career path was really State Farm Insurance. And you may say, well, that's not really healthcare. It's not, but it's insurance and it's related to healthcare, right? And so my first 5 years in my career was there, and I had a mentor. My leader was a female, not of the same ethnicity, but she was a female, and she took me under her wing, and she taught me so many things about what it is to manage and maneuver within corporate America as a female, and the things that she taught me, I will never ever forget. So in my career, I've done insurance, and then I've eventually and State Farm and healthcare, and then eventually I morphed into this thing called project management and the technical world. And I won't give you all the background about how I transitioned to that, but I made that transition, and it's been the best transition, and the best career that I could have ever had, right? I love project management, program management, helping teams evolve, getting things from the beginning to the end. And my family will tell you that a part of that is because I like telling people what to do and I like to be in charge. So they go with that. But my project management skills and all the certifications that I have, I ended up getting a master's degree, and all of that. It has not been easy. It's not been an easy journey, meaning that working in corporate America means that you have always the vulnerability of not being employed. So throughout my career, I've been probably involved in at least 3 or 4 different layoffs across the time that I've been working. And each one came with a punch, right? The first one came with a really gut punch. And, and some of you may be feeling that today. It's like, oh, this is the first time you've ever been laid off from work or have ever lost a job. What am I going to do? And it hits you really straight in the gut. And a lot of times you feel like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? What did I do? And at the end of the day, it's not what you did wrong. It's just the nature or the timing of what was happening within that organization. And I will tell you that over the 3 or 4 times that I've experienced being laid off from a job, I've never not landed on my feet. And I'm going to tell, and I'll give you the reasons why. We'll get into some of that discussion, but I want you to realize that if you're in the workforce and you haven't been laid off or you haven't been impacted by a reduction in force, you wait, it's coming. And there's many ways to try to prepare yourself for that on a professional basis, a financial basis, and all of that. So I really, at this point, want to pause because I want you to really understand that the journey starts way back when, takes you all the way till today, and the things that happen in between. So I want to see, Shanika, if you can take a poll, because I'd like to know the number of you on the call tonight that are truly either you've been impacted recently or you've experienced being not being employed due to a reduction in force. So I see LL. Who else do we have? There's Julia, Kelly. I know there's probably more. Probably everybody's been. There's Tamara. So I know you know what it feels like, but how do we get over the hump? What do we do? How do we persevere? So last year, I was laid off. Who's that? Ashley. Okay, Ashley. How many? So you can come off speaker. We want to engage in conversation. How many of you are not working today? How many of you have recently been laid off and you're in the job market today? Can you let's come off. And I think LL, who else is
in the market, but not based on a layoff, but yes, definitely in the market.
Yeah, but you're in the market. Okay. There's Maria. Who else do we have? Anybody that's in the market today, layoff or not? Tamara. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the market.
Okay, is that Glenn? Okay, Glenn, you're in the market.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Gotcha. So last year, I was laid off in June. And again, it's probably my 4th time in my career that I've been laid off. This is a startup company. So it's with the startup, you know that you're going in with blinders off, right? Most of the time you're going to I don't know what just happened here. Something happened. Shanika, what just happened? Can you guys hear me?
I think yeah, we can hear
on
you.
the whiteboard option down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whiteboard option is open.
Okay. So last year I was laid off from the company I was working with. It was a healthcare IT company. It was a startup. And so I knew that eventually it would maybe come to that, whether or not we weren't doing well and they began to lay people off, or whether or not we got sold and the new company decided not to transition, the current employees over to the company. Either way, you pretty much know that you're not going to be there forever, and that's a risk that you take. And I was willing to take that risk. So this time around, the market was horrible. Last year, as many of you know, companies were laying off left and right. I had already heard that people had been out of work. Some people have been out of work for a year. I've encountered people that have been out of work for 6 months. It was the most horrible, one of the most horrible times to be in the market. And even someone, as John mentioned, even someone like myself, who I was a director of a PMO. I've got MBA, CSM, I've got a CSPO, I've got, my PMP. I mean, I've done all the work, put in all this hard work. I've got all my credentials. I continue to learn and grow and do all those things to develop myself. But it was really tough, everybody, last year to land a job. I mean, and the market is so different today because recruiting is different. There was a lot of ghosting. I'll just kind of share with you some of the things that I experienced. First of all, you go to LinkedIn, and for one job, there's 2,000 people who've applied for the job. I don't know how many of you have experienced that recently. And I was like, oh my God, that cannot be real. Like that just, and 9 times out of 10, it is real. Now you have to kind of look at some of the statistics. Like, it's so easy to go out there and just hit apply, apply, apply. So I started to doing some calculations and some math, like, okay, well, if 1,000 people apply for this job, I would venture to say that half of those people are really not even qualified for the job, right? They just went in and applied, and there it is sitting there saying that, it's in the system. And then probably another quarter of those people would probably not really meet all of the qualifications, may come close. So you may narrow it down to maybe 200 people that might really truly be eligible for that job. But how heart-wrenching is that to know that every time I went to apply for a job, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people had applied for that job? How heart-wrenching was it to apply for all these jobs and never get any feedback? And never even get a reject. I would rather have gotten a rejection letter, something automated, than not getting anything at all, right? So some of you are probably experiencing that, where you don't hear anything. You apply, you don't get anything back. Or day after day after day, I would get rejection letters. It's like, okay, it starts to really hit your ego, right? Like it starts to really make you wonder about, well, am I good enough? What's wrong with me? And just understanding that the competition is fierce, but also understanding that on the back end of things, I know I've faced a lot of people who weren't really, to me, qualified enough to even be trying to assess resumes and things like that. Some of the callbacks that I did receive, the recruiters or the internal recruiters were less than professional. They didn't know the right questions to ask as far as interviewing or screening is concerned, or they wouldn't follow up. It was just a lot of negativity. And then you open up LinkedIn and you read all the same issues. Everybody was facing the same issues. And so it was a really, it was very gloom and doom, right? But let me tell you what you can do. With all of that gloom and doom, you have to understand that you are good enough. You have enough. You have what it takes. Okay. But you have to persevere. You cannot give up. And I think it sounds cliche, but it's all about you. It's all about you staying steady. It's all about you keeping the faith. It's all about you utilizing the tools that you have. I had a lot of people say LinkedIn, like, oh my God, LinkedIn is just horrible these days. It's, there's a lot of spam out here. Some of these jobs aren't real, and that is true. But you have to look at LinkedIn like you look at Equifax. I used to work for Equifax. It's not Equifax that's there. Yes, they're the people holding the data, but the creditors that are reporting your bad a person's bad credit is just that. It's that. So you can't blame Equifax for the data that's coming in. And the same for LinkedIn. You can't blame LinkedIn if a company is posting a job knowing darn well that they have no intentions of ever filling that job, or the job sits out there for 6 months and it's already been filled and they fail to take it down. So you really can't blame LinkedIn for that. So you have to kind of, pull back the brush and all the weeds and really get down to how do you make LinkedIn, how do you make Indeed, how do you make these other applications and systems work for you. And what I did was, one of the things I did was make sure that my resume and my LinkedIn profile were up to snuff. And so I actually had someone refer he's actually a recruiter, but he actually gives back by helping others upgrade their resumes. He gives you all the tips and tricks that you need to make your resume and your profile look better. So he's somewhat of a career coach. So I utilized him. He went through my resume. He told me, your resume looks great, Myra, but these are the things that you can do. And some of the things that I did that he suggested was making sure that if you have a long career, like you're old, like I'm old, and so I date back way like long time ago, you can't, of course, you can't put all that. You need to reduce that stuff down. So I think I had a 4-page resume. He said, no, you need to get it down to 2 pages. So that's first and foremost. Like, how can I do that? Like, I have 30 years worth of stuff here. How do I do that? Well, go back 7 years. That's all you need is 7 years. And the first 5 years is where you need to put the details. And then the last couple of years, you don't need all the extra detail, because 9 times out of 10, everything begins to be a repeat anyway, right? If you've been I've been a project manager, a program manager for years, it's all a repeat. I do the same thing. So those last couple of years, just put the name of the company and the dates that you worked there and your title. That's all you need. You don't need all the details. Another thing that I learned was the way you build this resume, and I'm not an expert here at resume writing, so don't say Myra's an expert at this, because I'm not. I'm just explaining to you some of the things that I've learned over this last year that really did help me to improve my resume. Is you want to write your resume in a way that it's not bulleted and all you're showing is like a job description. You know how you take your resume and everybody goes through and says, I did this, and it's all, but basically you're just taking a job description and you're just bullet pointing it. No, you need to show how you added value to that company. You needed to make it more of a situational type resume. So the company I worked for was X. This company, the problems or the issues or the things that they were trying to resolve was this. So a little bit about what that company was and what they needed from you. And then you take how you help that company solve their problems, how you help that company to improve. So you write it in more of a situational way, right? Does that make sense? So you're not really bullet pointing a whole bunch of descriptions of a job details. How did you really add value? How did you improve that company? How did you enhance the team? What problems did you solve? And then, of course, the basic things like putting your education in there and things like that. And making sure that you have a really tight summary. Make it concise, but make it powerful. Because my understanding, and John's on here, Kelly's on here, maybe some other people in the recruiting industry, some of the things that I learned is that managers and recruiters really only give your resume about 5 seconds. when they look at it, when they pull it up, they're looking at it, and it really 5 to 10 seconds is about all you have. So if you can't capture their attention within that 5 to 10 second window of time, then they've lost you. So they're not going to comb through 4 or 5 pages. They're not going to look at a bunch of bullet points. They want to know, how did you make an impact? So structure your resume in that way. And also ensure that, now, some people are still looking at resumes, but a lot of people, managers and leaders, are looking at your LinkedIn profile. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile matches your resume. So once you get your resume structured and built, then all you have to do is copy and paste that resume into your profile, and there it is, right? So they should be identical to one another. And I see somebody's got their hand up.
Yeah, Edwin. Yep.
Hey, Edwin.
Thank you for this, Myra. That really, really good points. I'm actually in the middle of do I need to do additional versions of the resume? I've got some technical background, I've got some leadership background. So really interesting point that you raised. For folks who are maybe developers or doing more hands-on keyboard stuff, does that apply for their resume? Should it be more, here's what I brought to the business, more conversational, or should they still stick to the not dry bullet list, but some of the itemizing of things that they did?
I think you can do both, Edwin. I think from the technical standpoint, and Julia Brown is on from CRH, and that's where I landed my feet. I think she's still on with us, and she's our cybersecurity director of our cybersecurity group. And Julia may be able to weigh in because she's looked at resumes and so on and so forth. But from a technical standpoint, I think you probably need to do a combination of those things. And Julia, if you're still on, it'd be great to hear from you.
When I look at somebody's resume, don't put something on the resume if you can't speak to it in the interview, because that's like the death now. If you put, oh, I did all this great stuff on your resume, and when I ask you about it in the interview, you're like a deer in the headlights, then I'm like, okay, well, now I can't believe any of this, really, right?
Right.
So it's important to put on there things that you're really comfortable in and things that are really what you can do, not things that you think they want to look at, right? Because they're going to ask you about it. But from a developer, of course, I don't hire developers because that's not my wheelhouse, but I would say, can you give them a link to something that you've developed that's maybe not proprietary to wherever you worked, but give them examples of your work so they can look at it. Give them some of and maybe in your resume, you can say, I created programs that did XYZ for the business or whatever, if you're not able to share the actual code. I think a lot of them do ask you to share some code, or they'll say, create this little program for us just to see that you can do it on the fly, or you can, do it with a minimum of effort, because they want somebody obviously who's got the expertise to just put it out there really fast.
Great points, Julia. And Edwin, I had multiple copies of my resume. I did have to have multiple copies, and Kelly's shaking her head. Sam, who we just spoke about, she was the recruiter at Motion. And so even, I've seen in the past, there were times where I was able to get away with not having multiple copies of my resume, but last year was not that case. I had to have multiple versions of my resume, right? And also depending on what industry I was going into as well. So.
And Edwin, I would just add to that too. I think Julia's right, but technology today is so much different than it was, once upon a time. If I was recruiting a developer, if they had good communication skills and could code, I could place them a million places. Now there's, a plethora of platforms and tools, and, they want you to come in the door knowing like everything under the umbrella, but at the end of the day, you still have to be able, communication is number one, and understanding the business is still imperative to, a successful technology person for most, in most situations. So I agree that putting a little bit of both on there, because you have to show that you know the how, but you also know the why. Why you're building it, and what the vision is. Not just, I was told to go do this and program, and I'm over here banging out, some code, and I'm going to come back, and then you're going to give me the next task. That's just not the way, teams work today. So showing that you are collaborative in nature, understand the business, and have the technology chops to do, what they're ultimately hiring you to do is really kind of, and from my perspective, the best way to bullet your resume. But that's tough, to share all that and be concise and not have 6 pages is, it takes some thought.
Really good stuff. Good discussion. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Kelly. I think that's great. And some of the other things too that I learned through my journey last year, and last year was unique. Like I said, I've been laid off before, over the years a few times, but last year was really, it was an eye opener. And so I'll focus on my experience from that point. You also make sure that you do your research on the company and be well prepared. So when you do get that call that they're ready that they want to interview you, you need to be ready. You need to be prepared. You need to make sure that your things like your Zoom is, you're able to connect, and your Microsoft Teams, you're able to connect. You have great lighting. You've done your homework, and they can, and the people interviewing you can tell that you've done your homework, that you understand who they are. You can understand what their market is, how well their business is doing. Now, one of the things that I did do, and that sometimes I cautioned myself, I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but once I found out who I was going to be interviewing with, I would go to their LinkedIn page if they had their profile, and take a look, and just become familiar with that individual if you can. Now, I don't know.
You're making some great points. I'm going to throw a couple of points in.
Sure.
I was a member of BDPA from years ago when we used to meet at the downtown at the golf building. But with regards to your job searching, there's a book called The High-Tech Survival Guide, and it's by Brian Barton. It has all these great tips about the job hunt and following up. It's a more aggressive form of following up. And I just wanted to throw in that when I got my MCSC, I announced it at the BDPA meeting, and everyone clapped. But that was more than a couple of years ago. So I do have a master's degree at this point in cybersecurity, and I was able to do an internship. But lately, my last job was driving a truck for Amazon. And I just wanted to make that point and thank whoever sent me the invitation for this meeting.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you being here, Glenn. So we got someone else had their hand up.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Sajjad. Sorry, I'm not in a position to open my video, so I'm just talking.
That's okay.
I was just wondering, if you check someone's LinkedIn, that person might be able to see that you have checked his or her LinkedIn. So what would be the impression? Actually, I did that recently while doing my job search, and I figured out that hiring manager, after that, he or she also checked me on LinkedIn. So I was just wondering, like, what would be the impression?
So that's a great question, and that's why when you heard me say you have to use some discretion or caution with that, because there. I mean, I want them to check me out. I have no problem. So that's perfectly fine, and I'm happy to see when I've applied for a job and I saw the folks from the company checking me out. I wanted them to check me out. Now, where I caution is you don't always know how the other individual feels about you checking them out. And so so I can't really, that's going to be at your discretion. I believe that most, if I'm on the if I'm the manager and I'm going to be interviewing a candidate, I like the fact that they are looking at the company and looking at my profile, and that tells me that they're doing their homework, right? That they're being assertive and they really have an interest, right? And so I don't really see it as a negative, but I can't sit here and guarantee that someone on that receiving end may not agree with that. So, but I think, and I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but that's how I view it.
Myra, I'm in agreement with you there. I think having hired a lot of people over the last decade, I mean, when you're in the process, I think it's just become fairly normal that you look at who you're going to be meeting with on LinkedIn. And when I'll say this, I always do. And when a candidate doesn't, when I see that they have not looked at my background to see like, okay, what can I learn about John that I can bring up in the interview and aid in the conversation, I think that's a lack of preparedness and it's a lack of interest that they're demonstrating. So I get what you're saying though. Like I think it's a very small percentage of people that would take offense of someone. If you have a profile, you're thinking, hey, someone's going to be able to look at that, and especially if you're a hiring in a hiring mode.
Yeah,
so,
I agree with that, John. And I don't feel like that I had any pushback or didn't get in, that someone mentioned it during an interview or what have you. So
yeah.
I don't really see it as a negative. But
before we leave the resume, just two observations to me. The one on just like the 7 seconds, that is absolutely true. I mean, you'll lose someone if your summary is too long. That's where you lose them. So I see it all the time, all the time. Kelly and I see it like every day. We see people with a long, technical career, and their professional summary is almost the whole first page of their resume, and it's brutal to look through. Like we're looking at resumes all day long. So when you see that, it's hard to consume and you're likely to give up. So that I was so glad when you said that, like make that professional summary tight. The other piece, again, you're trying to hold attention and you need to have credibility in your resume. So to me, there's a combo of quantifying your results and your achievements in your resume, like that holds people's attention. So you want to talk about projects in a way where there's measurable results. So you either shorten the delivery time, you lessened the amount of incidents, if it's cybersecurity, something along those lines where it's related to what you're doing. But it doesn't have to all be numbers and graphs and charts or whatever. You can explain it like you said, but I think you need to interweave some of that into it as well, and that will give you credibility. If you just say, it's less credible when you say, hey, I did a great job over here with this. where, hey, I lessened the runtime by 37% based on these times. Like, which one is more credible? So you want to have that kind of stuff in your resume.
And as Julia mentioned too, and that's a good point, John, as Julia mentioned, it when you get asked about it, you have to be able to speak to it. So, I mean, you have to be very honest and transparent. And speaking of Chat GPT, the session that Victor did last month, I used Chat GPT to help me come up with just some terms and some different words that I could place in my resume. But I'm the first person to raise my hand to say, if you just solely copy and paste what Chat GPT spits out to you, you won't land a job, right? Because everything that you put has to be very honest. You have to be able to back it up. It can't look like it's rote. You have to put your own flair and flavor and use your words. So even though ChatGPT might spit something out to me, it just was a ticker to help me kind of like, oh, okay. They use this phrase, but I would take that phrase and actually rephrase it. I didn't rely on ChatGPT to do my to give me all of my content. And part of it's just because of who I am. And you go back to plagiarism. It's like, oh, I didn't plagiarize somebody out of a book, but I kind of just plagiarized in a sense because it came from ChatGPT. That wasn't really me speaking, but it's okay for me. It was okay to use that as a tool to help generate some other thoughts and some other things that I may not have otherwise, just come up with. And it actually helped me from a speed perspective. Like, right, if I needed to rewrite a resume to kind of give me that a different take on what I was applying for, it was ChatGPT was an easy way for me to kind of quickly do that and generate some thoughts. So it was more of a thought-provoking and thought process for me, and not that I was copying and pasting and using exactly what ChatGPT said or spit out to me when I asked a question. So any questions on that, John? You got your hand, or you just did a thumbs up on that? So, so I use things like ChatGPT, a little bit of that. Also, I cannot stress this enough. And if you don't hear anything else that I say tonight, hear me when I say this. Your best defense and your best way of being able to get yourself in this market and get somewhere is your network. Your network. You need to utilize the people that you know. You need to ask those individuals if you can tap into their network. I'm talking about shout it to the mountaintop. I need a job. I'm out of work. I'm in the market, whatever it may be. But your network, and I learned this years ago, that the people I surround myself with and the relationships that I have will always be those relationships will always be something that I cherish. And I say this, the relationships that you build have to be genuine and authentic. Over my life, I have friendships and relationships with people that I've met along the way, whether it's been through working with those individuals at a company, or meeting them through someone else, or through an organization, or through volunteer work. I have some very solid relationships, and they're genuine relationships. I've worked with people back in 2006, 7, 8, and 9, and I'm still in contact with those individuals. When they have a birthday, I reach out to them. I know when their kids' birthdays are. I mean, you have to build solid, genuine, honest relationships with people. And trust me, when you do that and you have that big network, and people know that they can trust you, people know that you do a great job, people know that you will represent them well and represent yourself well, they'll go out of their way to help you. And that's been my biggest I guess my biggest thing for me that has helped me a lot is the people like John and Kelly and Sam and other people that I've met that along the way that has really been helpful. So if you have nothing else, and I mentor young people, and that's one of the things I talk about with them is that you need to establish really great relationships with people and hone in on those relationships and be willing to help those individuals too. It's not about they're always helping you. You need to be willing to help them and to give back to others. And that's key and important. I think we've got some hands raised. Anybody?
I think that's
No?
your
I
hand,
think that
Myra.
might be yours.
Take it down, Shanika. Thank you. But networking, I think that's very key. But those relationships need to be genuine and honest and sincere. And you don't go call somebody up. I haven't talked to that person in 10 years. Hey, you remember me? We used to work together and blah 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 blah. And guess what? Do you have any leads on any jobs or what's going on in your company? That doesn't bode well with people, right? Yeah.
Myra, I think something that helps people, because I know CRH has gone through some iterations of layoffs, and one of the things that was helpful is if as you're leaving or before you leave, ask coworkers and particularly people that you don't report to but that are higher than you to give you recommendations on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because those can be very helpful, I think. You want to be sure that they're going to say something good, obviously, but
Obviously.
I think, getting that solicitation ahead or asking, can I use you as a reference before you leave? That I think those are really helpful.
Absolutely. And I might add to that, Julia, you also need to make sure that you keep those recommendations updated, right? So like every year you should go in and ask folks in your network to give you a recommendation, right? So that they stay fresh and current, right? Because if you have someone that's giving you a few people that's giving you a recommendation, but it was 5 years ago, that's not up to date. It's not even relating to maybe what you've been doing most recently. So get those recommendations, ask people to do that for you, and then keep those fresh, just like you should keep your resume fresh. Keep those recommendations fresh. And then again, you must also be willing to give recommendations, because I actually realized that some leaders, hiring managers, they not only look at who's giving you recommendations and they read those, but they also look to see how many have you given, right? And again, it's about you as an individual. How willing are you to reach back, give back, and help others, right? When others are in need or ask you for something as well. So that's also another good point. Thank you, Julia, for raising that one. Anybody have something else any questions, or what has your experience been like? Are there any pointed questions that you have that myself or anyone else on the call can help with? What are you running into that is a roadblock that you just want some insight on?
Well, I have been applying to several jobs. I mean, uh, last two times when I was in the job market, I got calls right away and I had few offers. But the present scenario is very different. I mean, I haven't seen a market like that. I have been in the industry for 4 years now. I think last two times I made the choice wherever I wanted to join. Okay, but now when I'm looking at jobs now, as you mentioned that like for one posting maybe there could be hundreds of job applications. Okay, in that scenario, what would be the effective strategy? Do you think that should we apply to jobs where are like less applicants, or like how should I approach it?
So, thank you for that question. So, part of what I did that I think helped was um, looking outside of the same industry that I've been working in, right? I've been healthcare IT for a long, long, long time. So maybe you need to look at other industries outside of your wheelhouse, right? That may help. The company I'm with now, of course, I went, it was through John and Kelly at Motion as a contract role. But the company has nothing to do with healthcare IT, right? And so it's a totally different industry. And making sure that you look at your skill set and say, okay, my skills are this, but they also apply or can be applicable to other industries outside of what I've been accustomed to working inside of. Um, so maybe that's one thing that you can consider. The other things also are, I don't know if you're looking at jobs that are asking you to be hybrid or asking you to come into the office. I mean, and then, sometimes we have to take a step back. I know when I say take a step back, it's meaning maybe you have worked 100% remote, but then this company says, you know what, we need you to come into the office 2 days, 3 days out of the week. With the marketplace being the way it is today, I considered everything. I didn't leave anything off the table. If I've been working 100% remote, but if the company says, you need to be here 3 days out of the week, Myra's going to show up 3 days out of the week. So sometimes you have to take a different direction in order to move forward, if that makes sense.
That's a great point, actually. That's what I thought also. I work in like data analytics field. I have been mostly virtual since COVID, but I think considering the present job market, I believe, yeah, the point you mentioned is a great point. I mean, if it needs me be in person or hybrid, try to be open. That's
Yeah.
a great thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now, just the way the market is, you're going to have to widen your horizon, and right, and maybe look at something, take a wider approach, right?
Sure. Thank you so much. We are
You're
happy.
welcome. John, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I have this conversation with a lot of people all the time about how their search is going and just the psychology and where they are, how they're feeling about it. And I often give the advice of like a balanced approach to it. So I set expectations that very few people get a job by applying blindly to an ad that they know no one at the company. It just doesn't really happen, like all those stats that you gave. I won't say it never happens. It happens maybe 1, 2, 3% of the time. I mean, but in order to, I think my coaching often is just so that you can say as the job seeker that I have done everything possible. Do a little bit of it. But what I'd rather have you do is do that for 20, 30 minutes. Aside from that, I'd rather have you do some networking. I'd rather have you reach out to people that you worked with before, see if they'll meet you for coffee. And those are the conversations. That's what's going to get you the job most often. It's those conversations that then morph to, you know what? Like, they're not gonna like call you out of the blue and say, you know what, I have a friend over at ABC company. you should connect with them. That's going to happen by you reaching out, you investing in the relationship and being naturally curious about what's going on. Be authentic that, hey, I'm in job search mode, I'm looking for some help. But that's where that happens the majority of the time. So but I never want to say like just ignore it, because I occasionally will hear someone say like, you won't believe this, I just got the best job. And but anyways, I you had said that before about the networking piece of it, and I just want to iterate that. And
I can't stress it enough. I mean, and I'll be transparent here. I keep going back to Julia, but I'm so glad she's here tonight, because I want to say this. A lot of it falls on you. Your reputation is everything. When I grew up, one of the things that my parents taught us is your name means everything, right? Your reputation means everything. And when you are someplace, you need to make sure that you represent yourself well, extremely well. And so everywhere I've worked, I can always say I've never burnt bridges. I've performed very well. I've done the best that I could possibly do. And obviously that has left a mark on my former leaders and people I've worked for and people I've worked with. I've never had an issue personally with either my CEOs, my directors, my managers, or whomever, or colleagues being willing to pick up the phone and vouch for me, or give me a recommendation, or I reach out and say, what's going on, like John said, what's going on in your company? I'm in the market, I'm looking, is there anything? And them saying to me, you know what, yeah, I've got this over here, Myra, if you're interested, let's connect on this. And I bring Julia up in this case because at CRH, I didn't know who the heck CRH was until Kelly and Sam brought them to me. Maybe one of these days I would have figured out who they were, but at the time last year, I didn't know who CRH was. And so when they brought it to me, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me go do my homework and do my research, which I did. And as I started to go through and look to see who worked at CRH, I ran across a young lady's name, and I was like, oh, I know her. I used to work with her team at Macy's when I was on site at Macy's. And so I reached out to my former leader. I worked for him at Macy's, but then when he left Macy's, he went to First Data, now Fiserv. He took me with him to Fiserv, called me up and said, I want you to come with me when I was like, oh, okay. He did. So I worked for him at Fiserv. And when I called him up and said, you know what, this young lady works at this company that I have been asked to apply to. He's like, oh, yeah. Well, they were colleagues. So he said, give me a moment. Let me call her up. So he called her up and they chatted. And he said, yeah, Myra Sunbury, she's applying for a job at your company. And I don't know what happened in the background. It's not for me to know, and I don't, whatever, but I'm at CRH now, and I'm grateful for that. Interviewed with Julia and her team and the individual that I'm speaking of, and I'm there now, and I've been there for 4 months? 4 months now. Yeah, 4 months. And it's been awesome. So I tell you that I'm being transparent and open about that because, again, your network, the people that you know, are your best allies, but they can't be your ally if you haven't done your part in making sure that you've built a good rapport and you've done a great job so that they can be an ally for you when the time, if and ever the time comes.
It didn't hurt for the other interviewer to get that, but it's just because you blew the interview away. That's why.
Thank you for that.
So I'm interested from a perspective of the recruiters. So, I mean, what what do you do when job seekers reach out to you guys, or should they be reaching out to you and saying, hey, I'm in the market, and do you have roles that are whatever they're looking for, FTE or contract to FTE or whatever? Is that something that you guys solicit?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're that's our job all day, every day. I mean, we're, talking with candidates. Our approach is, it's a relationship. It's not a transactional type of situation. It's what Myra's talked about. That's how we've run our company forever. It's been one of, hey, let's form relationships with people, get to know them, understand what they're looking for, how can we help them, and then it's just a matter of timing. And that's just work, that's just hey, I understand what you're looking for. I either have something or I don't have something for you right now, but let's just put on the calendar that we touch base every 2 months or 3 months or whatever, and just take it from there. If something comes up before then, I'm calling you immediately. But that's kind of the boring part of what we do. It's just a matter of the timing and getting the timing work and to work. And so often, there's, I don't know, we all have, as recruiters, like we all have like these candidates that it's like, man, this is like just a fantastic person, and I just have never had the right timing, and gone forever, and it's just never worked, and that's just reality. But I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I'm rambling now. Sorry.
Well, I was just wondering, maybe that's something to talk to the people on the call about, is if you're looking, reach out to a recruiter for help.
Oh yeah, most definitely, Julia. I was going to get to that. Yeah, because and I tell people, I had a guy call me, a gentleman called me a few weeks ago. He someone that I know not well, but he reached out and said, "Hey, Myra, I'm in the job market. Can you help me?" And one of the things that I've told him is that, and others, you need to have like more than one recruiter in your back pocket, right? You need to have 3 or 4, especially now in this market. You need to have multiple recruiters in your back pocket and establish a solid relationship with them, and be reaching out to them, or contact your people in your network to say, do you have a recruiter or an executive search person that you can connect me with? That is very key, because those individuals will really work on your behalf. Now, I will say that not all recruiters and company recruiting firms are created equal. John and Kelly at Motion are, they're very unique, right? But those are the types of companies that you want to partner yourself with. I've got like 4 or 5. I'm just fortunate that I have a personal relationship with Kelly and John, because I used to work for Matrix, now Motion. Like JB said, I actually worked for them with the company as an FTE in the professional services team as an employee. So they have a different insight where I'm concerned. But yes, connect with recruiters and establish that rapport and those relationships. Let them get to know you, and most really do a great job of working on your behalf. One of the things that happened to me back in 2014, I was in the market, not because I was laid off, just because I was wanting to change, and I got an email from a recruiter. It was for a healthcare IT company. It was a PMO role. And normally back then, I'm like, I'm not, I'm not LinkedIn recruit. I'm not doing that. But for some reason, something in the back of my head said, answer this lady. I answered that recruiter, and it was one of the best things that I could have ever done. I got the job. I got a $30,000 increase in salary, annual salary. It was a startup company. And from that point on, those owners of that company have taken me to other companies that they have built and joined, and I've been able to go along with them and get some really great opportunities inside those organizations because and it was all because that recruiter contacted me through an email just randomly from LinkedIn, and I responded. And from that relationship with that particular recruiter and that firm, I've connected other people to her. And guess what? Those individuals have been gotten, one person, like John said, they didn't have anything for that individual, took about a year. And now all of a sudden she called my friend and said, look, I have a perfect job for you. Lo and behold, they placed her, and it was, history after that. So that one connection then morphed into other connections, not just for me, but for someone else that that's a part of my circle. So yes, recruiters can be your best friend. I see Ratia. Ratia, you got your hand up. What you got?
I do. I honestly, I don't know where to start, but kind of piggybacking off of making sure your network is up to par. A little bit of background about myself. I recently got laid off approximately 8 months ago, and it was really hard on my psyche. I had never had an issue landing a job. I never even had a need for a LinkedIn because I always interviewed, found my position, and it just always went in my favor. And so when I guess I should back up a little bit. I kind of I have a background in science, in the science field. I've worked at labs. I've done a lot of research, and I was a teacher. And so I've had jobs that were stable. And I took my first leap of faith into corporate America. Um, Thanks to my mother. My mother is Myra. I probably shouldn't, maybe not have said that, but she's an inspiration and just so admirable to others. I mean, I'm so blessed to have her as my mother because I've watched her over the years mentor other people and just be the word of reason for many others. But I will say that she was really there for me during this time of hardship. And it taught me a lot in this period of time, how jumping into corporate America can be. You can have your ups and downs, and it can turn at any time. I worked for a startup company. I left my stable job as a high school teacher. I wasn't making that much. I remember I was Grubhubbing at a student's home, and the student thought that they were in trouble. And so I was like, no, I'm actually Grubhubbing because I can't afford to live. And my mom had been begging me to come on with her for another job opportunity that would be triple my salary. And I was like, no, I'm comfortable teaching. I love my kids, but I realized that I had to, make some choices for my family. And I got on with the position. I was a corporate trainer for a preventative healthcare company, and a year in, um, they had some department retention and laid off the entire department. And so I kind of fell apart in the moment. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been laid off. I'd never been terminated. So it was really shocking. And again, going back to that network, it was kind of a rude awakening. I have no network. I'm stepping out in a different area. So it was really scary for me. So I'm glad I had that support. But I want to tell you guys that are in that position looking for a job, and I know this market is horrible, that there is hope. You have to always keep in mind that this is only a temporary thing, and you may have to pick up something to supplement your income. Like during that time, I was doing Amazon Flex, I was doing Grubhub, I was doing DoorDash, I was sparking for Walmart, but I made my way, and it kind of gave me a chance to have a little bit of freedom. I was able to find myself, do a lot of thinking to really know that when I chose my next company, that I wanted to make sure that it was a company that I felt like had some longevity, a company that I felt had a great organization, their operations was, in line and in place. And I got a lot of rejection. Every time I got a rejection, it was like I was looking at myself like, am I doing something wrong? What is it? You go to fill out an application and you'd have 3,000 applicants that have already applied. It's really hard to compete right now, is getting spammed a lot. So it was really, really discouraging. But again, I just want to let you guys know that there is light on the other side, and you will get it. And when you choose your company again, make sure when you get that rejection, don't take that as a loss. You want to be in a place where you're welcomed, where you're loved. And like I said, I recently landed a job at a company called Alta Sciences. I'm a report coordinator, and I do preclinical trial reporting, and I couldn't be happier. And when I did my interview, I knew right away that this was the company for me. I had a chance to be myself. It was very authentic, and it was worth all the rejection. So just hopefully I could give you guys a peace of mind that it will get better. And lean on those people, make sure that you don't, burn those bridges, and lean on the people, and try to be a helping hand when other people are down, because you could be in their position tomorrow. So um with that said, this was a wonderful conversation, and I hate that I couldn't be more involved, but I'm actually grub hubbing right now because I'm still feeling those remnants. I haven't even gotten a paycheck yet. So
Oh, that's my child.
so I'm gonna fight to the end, and you guys will get there. So good luck to you. And I've set my LinkedIn in the comment section, so I hope everybody does the same. And I hope we have another conversation and the crowd gets larger and larger. So thank you
Thank you,
for having me.
Lucia.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing.
All right, we got
Let's
some
see.
questions.
Ashley. Hey, Ashley.
Hey everyone, good evening. Ratia, I want to respond like something that you said around like the rejection part. So I'm going through like the interview process as well too. And also Myra, I was taking notes when you're talking about, the prep and the work that you can do ahead of the interview to like prepare and like get acquainted with like the interviewers and stuff. But what do you do after? Like let's say you get like one of those rejections and it's like you're feeling discouraged. Is it worth it to maybe reach out to the recruiter or some of those contacts to like get feedback or anything? Or like kind of what's your opinion on dealing with the other
I
side of the
absolutely did.
process?
I absolutely reached out for feedback. I felt that it was only fair. Um, when you have to go through some of those strenuous application processes, I mean, some were wanting me to do videos and, send my portfolio. So I feel like it's only fair. I understand that they maybe can't get back to everyone, but if you went through an actual interview process, I think it's fair. So it doesn't do anything to hurt. You can get yourself some feedback and get some pointers. And a lot of times it's just that, it's just really, it's extremely competitive, and unfortunately it seems like they want you to have every mark. There's no really room, it seems like there's no such thing as entry level anymore. You either need to have it or you don't. So again, building that resume and making sure you're touching on those points that they're asking on the application or the job description, and trying to hit those points. But yes, that rejection, it's horrible. It is horrible. And then again, when you are applying for a job, follow up with those people. Don't wait for them to reach out to you, because it lets them know that you're ready to work, you're eager, and they may have forgotten about you. They may even overlooked you a little bit, but remind them who you are. It's nothing wrong with following up. I mean, I followed up a lot, and for me, I actually had my interview way back in November and didn't get hired until um early February, just because it was the holidays and they were kind of dragging it out. So be patient, and then also follow up. And that's just my opinion.
She answered it for me. I couldn't have said it any better. There you go. And that was from experience, her experience, true life. Yeah.
And you never know, maybe they make the decision and they hire someone other than you. But what if something happens with that person? Like what if they decide not to go with her? What if they start and they realize, hey, this is not a great fit? So I totally agree. Like you should follow up, and a thank you note is an easy thing to do. Again, it's about expressing your interest level. So that could make the difference between, you getting that call, like that person turns out to not be a good fit. It dissolves away. They don't want to, starting the whole search over. It's hard. Ask Julia. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to hire someone. It really is. So to go back, like if they could go back and be like, hey, I like that candidate. They express their interest. I wonder if they're still available. I could just shortcut this process, and there's my person. So again, expressing interest can pay huge dividends.
I have a question for the experts. there's this language that wasn't out when I was in college, Python. And my cousin, who's a developer, is pushing me to study up on it. So, any thoughts about Python?
Yeah, you'll be well served to learn at least the basics of Python. It's data scientists, financial folks, operations, DevOps people. It's a accessible language that's a tie-in to a lot of things. So on the automation side, right? It's so yeah, you wouldn't be wasting your time. To mastering it is one thing, but just knowing the basics of what it can do. And if you already have that background, it should be easy for you to onboard that.
Yeah,
One thing I will say is, and not like your life's not hard enough already if you're looking for a job, but be really careful, because there's a lot of scams out there. And if people start asking you for an email copy of your driver license or your passport or your social security number, that's a scam, and that's not a real job. So check their website, check the company website to see if the job is listed. Don't just send anybody your personal information, because that's a big scam out there. And even companies, CRH all the time has fraudulent posts on LinkedIn offering jobs that don't exist, and they're trying to get passport information and driver license and social security information.
Good point. Yeah.
And it's hard to get them taken down. LinkedIn is not very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kelly, I saw you made a good point. Like, really lean on your recruiters, the good recruiters to help you with your resume writing and tips and tricks and things like that. They're experts at that, and so they're a big help for that. So, and one of the other things too, another tip that I was given by the gentleman that helped me kind of restructure my resume was my LinkedIn profile. I thought my photo was cute. Sam told me, John and Kelly will appreciate this. Sam told me, I've always wanted to tell you that maybe you should have a different photo, Meyer. I said, well, you should have just said it. I would have been okay with that. The photo wasn't a bad photo. It's just that, I don't know, it didn't have that, I don't even, I think I was out somewhere and there was a bunch of lights or whatever. Anyway, I look cute. I do admit that, but guys know I'm joking, but I needed to change my profile photo. And then the other thing was I needed a banner. I didn't know should put a banner. Like, you need something really catchy. They call it the banner, where your photo sits, but it needs to be something that relates back to what you do, right? Like, don't go put a Happy New Year sign banner behind your head, but something that will showcase what you do, what your profession is, or what have you. So I was able to get this banner and change my profile photo, and lo and behold, it did get some more hits, for real. It really did help. So if you don't have a nice banner, and if you don't have a true professional headshot, invest in that. Even if you do it yourself with your iPhone or what have you, but just make sure that your photo is a true professional shot and not a fun shot. But back then, before last year, I really wasn't using LinkedIn to that degree. So, but when you're really leaning on it, it should always be that way at all times. So keep it fresh and keep it clean, and just as streamlined as you can and concise.
One point we've been talking a lot about is how much to lean on your network, and the answer is a lot. But what if you're, someone said this before, what if you're just starting? What if you don't really have much of a network? Then you're in network building mode. And that's where LinkedIn is a great tool for that. So you can look to, either look to join groups and be in groups that are within your skill set, maybe within the industry that you work in as well. So those would be, kind of easy, no-brainer avenues to, again, just try to grow your network there. And of course, wherever you are, you want to be connecting with the people that you work with, and growing that network organically like that as well.
And also, JB, that's a good point. The groups, are a big help as well. And you get to learn from those groups as, I mean, you go out there and you see what's being posted and you start to read and get engaged. And so it's a learning opportunity as well. And one of the other things that people bring up is, should I have premium? Should I pay that $40 a month for premium LinkedIn? And my personal answer is no. There's ways to utilize, I see Kelly shaking her head. There are ways to utilize LinkedIn where you don't need to pay for the premium subscription. And that's a hard pill, because you're already out of work for a lot of people. They're already out of work, and maybe the finances are way more tight than before. You don't want to spend $40 a month. I mean, that's something else you can be doing with that $40, gas in your car, what have you. So there's ways to utilize LinkedIn to where you don't need to pay for the $40 subscription. And one way is, join the groups. It connects you with thousands of people once you join a group, right? The few friends that you may have, you connect with those folks, and then you go out and you see who they're connected to, you see what groups they're a part of. And so there's ways to to get around having to pay that subscription fee every month.
But you can generally get the first month free. And then they want to know, then they offer to, renew it, of course, automatically, but you cancel it before that first 3 months is up. And then the minute you cancel it, they'll send you an offer for 2 months for the price of one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I've done that. And I will cancel it after the second 2 months.
Gotcha. Yeah. They're hitting me up now for the 2 months free. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And most of that is really because they keep you from seeing who all has looked at your profile. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you don't get to see, but you still get to see. You may not get to see that individual's name, but you get to see what industry they came from, or maybe even what company they came from. And then you can maybe do some process of elimination from that point. And if it's someone who really wants to connect with you, they're going to reach out and connect with you, right? They're going to look at your profile, but they're going to really reach out and connect with you if they really want to extend a conversation or what have you. Kelly, you have something? I saw you shaking your head.
Well, I thank you, Myra, for everything you've shared tonight. I think it's great information. I would say, kind of on the networking, if I had one tip for people out of work right now, and for those that are maybe new to the industry or out of school and just starting to look, I mean, you're very accurate when 90% of recruiting is done on LinkedIn today. So spending your time, investing in your network that you do have on LinkedIn, but just building your own brand on LinkedIn now, with your downtime and while you're out looking for jobs, you need to make sure that, like you said, your profile and everything is up to date. It's looking sharp. It mirrors your resume. Everything there is succinct and looks good. Ask for the recommendations, like you said, so you have some current recommendations. But whatever your industry is, whatever you're looking for, whether it's Python, whether, if it's data science and AI, whether it's project management, whether it's cybersecurity, whatever it is, you should invest some time in following people who are experts in those fields. You should invest some time. And hear me when I say you do not need to curate content. You do not need to create a blog. You don't need to, create massive posts. But what you do need to do is like, follow, repost, comment frequently. And when I say frequently, like 3 or 4, 5 times a week, when you are, especially if you are looking for work, because what it does is it just raises your sort of your brand, if you will. So people start to see your name. People that are in that industry that are looking, they start to see, oh, look, Myra's commenting on this. Oh, Myra responded to a quote on such and such, or, oh, Myra's also following this, program management organization, or just got her certification in this, that, or the other. So you start to be more present in the feed. It's just the algorithm, that LinkedIn uses. This is all just the technology behind the scenes. This isn't, me wanting to be, the cool kid on LinkedIn. This is just how the algorithm works. And so it starts to, like I said, you get a little more visibility from people that might be looking for your type of profile. But it also allows you, you will find some very interesting material out there in doing this as well. And when you get that interview and you are talking with folks, it makes you look very relevant when you say, I just read this Harvard Business Review on LinkedIn about Python development, or I just read this blog from such and such, name drop, about this, program management new certification that's coming out. Whatever those things are that you've just followed, liked, curated, reposted, all of those things are just going to lend credibility to you when you go into an interview. So the amount of time that you spend networking, I would add another maybe 30 minutes, 3 or 4 times a day to do those things on LinkedIn. And inevitably, your name will come up a little bit more. So when other recruiters are searching for that skill set, you should come up in those searches more regularly.
Absolutely, and that helps, and that that's key, and it keeps you from, again, having to invest the $40 or $49 or whatever it is, because when you do the likes and the follows and the commenting, then you're, like Kelly just said, that's building your your name and recognition within the LinkedIn profiles there. So yeah, makes all the difference in the world. Just gives you more of a boost. Shanika, how are we on time? Are we about time, or where are we at with time? What we got?
We can see if folks have any other questions, but if not, yeah, we can wrap it.
So I have a question actually. So let's say if you are changing the job, and in your current job, you don't want your supervisor or coworkers to know about it. So like, if you don't take reference from your present supervisor or the coworkers who are you working with now, is it fine? Or do you suggest to take reference from the current workplace?
So are you asking, let me make sure I understand your question. So you're currently working, but you want to be in the market and you're looking, but you don't want your current employer to know that you're looking, so you can't use them as a reference. Am I understanding the question
Right.
correctly?
Yeah.
So I know, like, on LinkedIn, there's a way to open yourself up to recruiters only, but I think there's always a chance that someone else can see that. So I don't know. I don't know if I should give any advice on that piece. John,
Well,
help me
I
out.
think, don't most applications say you're free to contact my current supervisor, or you are not free to contact my current supervisor? I feel like they I think ours asked that question. That's a really common, right? You never want to let your current guy know that you're leaving until you're
Yeah,
ready to walk out the door and with an offer, right? So
right. That's what
that's
I was
very
thinking of, like
common.
asking that. I mean, if do I need a reference from my current supervisor?
You
Let
can mostly, I mean, you can give like former, they usually ask for like, a couple professional references and then, maybe a personal reference or two. So, you can go to former employers that you worked for and ask them to give you a reference, like maybe the place that you were at before your current location.
yeah. That's all I wanted to really know. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not very comfortable seeking reference from the current workplace sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions out anyone has? Anything else I want to say thank each and every one of you for participating for sure tonight. I hope that something I've said or something that was said by someone else has made an impact, has helped you. I didn't, Shanika, I didn't put my profile. Someone had already reached out and connected with me on LinkedIn before the meeting tonight. So that tells me that person is definitely doing his homework. I don't know if he's on tonight or not, but I accepted his invitation. So I'll accept your invitations if you want to reach out and connect.
Myra,
And
thank you. That was awesome. What a great discussion you led, and look at this. Like you're kind of turning into a bit of a recruiter too. You got Julia to come on. You got your daughter to come on. I mean, man, oh man,
hey,
talk about filling it all out. That was we went full spectrum there. That was special. So yeah, Shanika, any closing thoughts?
No, yeah, thanks, Myra, for coming in and sharing your story and your openness, and also your daughter sharing as well. Thank you. Thanks everyone that was sharing and all the questions. I think, as you all see, we've been recording it, so I think I was saying this earlier that even for folks that probably weren't able to join, like I know, we'll have it on our website, but I know I've linked some of our videos to just other peers that I run into for them to shape their perspectives on things. So definitely a lot of insight today. So our meetings are the third Wednesday of each month. So our next speaker should be Mike Williams. John was kind of highlighting earlier.
It is.
And yeah, but if they're like, we usually post our upcoming meetings on the LinkedIn page. And there are also like the mailing list that we have. Usually after, if you actually do sign up to BDPA and become a member, then your email eventually gets added to the mailing list. But I think following us on LinkedIn is probably for most, like at least most up to date highlights. I would say the mailing list, that could be a little delayed depending on availability. So, but yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and hope to
thank
see you again
you.
next month. Thanks, Myra.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
No,
Thanks.
Thanks,
thanks
Myra.
everyone. I appreciate it. Take care. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.